episode of Dream Oracle for You. I am your host, Sarah, and as always, I have my wonderful co host, Biliana. And today is episode 37. We apologize for the little bit of break. We took some much needed time to ourselves to regroup and recoup, but a lot of things are in the works. Please check out the show notes. We have a course that we're going to be offering in September. So we're really excited to offer that to you about how to interpret your dreams. So please check it out. Anyway, enough about us. Today's episode is about chatting with this beautiful soul. Her name is Natasha Darling. She's part of the Healing Academy. And we're going to hear Alchemy. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wrote down.
No, that's okay.
You know what?
It's all good.
I always do this. I either mess up somebody's last name or I mess something else up. It's okay.
It's a lot to remember.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Even like I even wrote the note, but I spelled it wrong on my note. Okay. Anyway.
No.
That's fine. Biliana.
Take two. Take two.
No take twos. I'm not editing. We're going through with this. Biliana, have some words of welcome for us back on the show.
Yeah, welcome back on the show. It been a few weeks now, and it feels weird. We were just talking about this before. It feels weird recording again on a Monday, well, for me, Monday morning, and getting back into the routine after a little bit of a break, a much needed break because I've got like other projects going on, and I think when you're doing something like this that can be so profound and insightful for yourself and others, you need time to like absorb it and reflect on it. So it's been good to have this break. So yeah, we're back into it with Natasha. So it's going to be a great chat. So if you want to welcome yourself, just introduce however you like to be known.
Yeah, okay. So I am Natasha. I am also sometimes called Shah because self-healing alchemy, the first letter of each word, and that just sort of stuck. And self-healing alchemy to me is sort of reclaiming our sovereign selves in the here and now through our creative right to heal. And healing can look like many different things every single day. And I come from sort of a styling, producer, creative direction background, painting, artist, and then sort of progressed like naturally was always interested in healing, was always studying kind of healing modality stuff behind the scenes, but I needed to have all the experience around production and organizing events and things like that and create a vision to understand what it was to step into my sovereignty as a creator in the likeness of creator. But yeah, so I'm based in Brisbane. I have been through my own healing journey, which has been pretty massive. And I kind of think that like sometimes people, the way they perceive my experience from the outside, they don't necessarily realize like what's kind of happening as an internal kind of alchemic kind of process. And I think sometimes people see healing as like going through something major as a failure rather than seeing it as an opportunity to explore and figure out more of who you are. So yeah, that's kind of like, I guess, more also what I'm kind of interested in, what I'm about. But
You muted.
Clearly, I'm
That's
a
right.
little rusty.
all right, our heads are in the clouds today. It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah, pretty much. Well, thank you so much for sharing that little bit about you, and I'm really excited to just hear what more we'll learn about you this evening, and especially from your perspective on dreams. So thank you again for agreeing to be on our show, being our first guest back after a little bit of a break. And yeah, so where do we want to start the conversation with dreams?
Well, I want to
Yeah, you go.
just ask, like you're talking about your healing journey, and you don't have to talk about like what it was or anything, but did you find your dreams influencing your healing, or were they more prominent or less, or they could go
Yeah,
into so many different topics, but yeah, we can
definitely.
start there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely noticed that leading into sort of flare-ups or situations that I was going through, I would have very specific kind of dream, usually animals coming in and sort of like showing me what was kind of about to occur or what was unfolding. And I perceived these animals to be like emissaries that were sort of sent to me in the dreams, like in the spirit realm, to kind of prepare me for what was about to unfold. Not that I necessarily understood what exactly was going to occur, but there was just like, for example, maybe about 10, like probably 2013, before I went through a major, like it was kind of like a near-death experience process, and it was pretty massive. I had multiple dreams of shark coming in, and I was kind of accepting my death process with shark. So shark was pulling me under the water, and I would die, and it was sort of like that release and that surrender to shark energy, which I understand shark to be kind of a protector of the reef. It balances out like, it removes the debris of the reef. It protects a lot. It keeps like the reef in a healthy ecosystem. So I think that the shark was actually coming in to help protect me and support me through what I was about to go through, for example. So there's definitely, and then before this last journey that I went through in the last year, I had a massive squid come in, and it was so, so huge, but it was kind of quite like it was, yeah, it was a really overwhelming dream. Like when I woke up, I was like, oh my gosh, what's unfolding here? But it sort of always continues. I feel like they're power messengers, like they come as power totems, and they come to guide us through stepping into another form of a power, because each animal has their own special gifts and they all have their own unique attributes. And so when I'm thinking about ocean animals, it's about emotion or connection to feeling states. There might be something that I'm learning around what that is, or that I'm doing on behalf of a collective awareness on some level. I'm not, it's not one thing or the other necessarily. So yeah, there's a lot of different dream states that can happen, especially preparing you from the unconscious to conscious and linking those realms and and they're kind of like the messengers between those sort of aspects of self.
So cool. It's always amazing to me how we can have so many different talk to so many different people about dreams. Every single person just has an absolute unique experience. And so I just thank you again for coming on and sharing. And I'm very curious as to what you feel that the emotion was surrounding a giant squid. And before you do that, I'm from Newfoundland, and Newfoundland has actually had in the past a giant squid wash up on their shore. And so there's like a whole museum. They've made a giant replica of a giant squid, and like their all eyeballs are like the size of a basketball. So was your squid that large? And tell me more what you think the message was that was
Um,
being conveyed.
Yeah. This particular energy, there felt like there was a bit of a dubious it was showing me that there was some sort of psychic element to this that was maybe dubious, in like a darker element, and there was some sort of psychic warfare happening in because I'd released a prayer series and it had covered quite a lot of ground, and I started to notice that there was just a lot of odd things. And you can do protection, but sometimes you just are in a battle in the spirit realms, and sometimes you're just like navigating the collective psyche or the undercurrent of a collective awareness around certain things. So when you pioneer into new territory or you do prayer work, sometimes like it dredges up things that have been in the undercurrent of the collective. And you can perceive it as your own unconscious, but we are experiencing everyone's unconscious in our dream state, not just our own. Like we do have our own ways of relating to it, but it's kind of, from my perspective, it's a collective awareness as well. So the squid was initially started off as an octopus, and he was at my back door, and it was massive, and it was like playing kind of a game where it was sort of drawing me out. And then as I was like really connected with that octopus, and then as I walked out, it turned into a squid, and it was like became really aggressive. And I was just really aware that I was fighting a battle with some sort of energy around that. And it didn't necessarily feel like, I know in shamanic practices, there are sort of creations that have been a bit twisted, and that they become like they're sort of got the animal aspect, but they've been twisted with other forms. And then they usually, shamans can use like certain animal medicine. Like, so for example, if you've got a twisted form of a squid that's kind of a bit, has some sort of darker elements in the subconscious or the unconscious self or the collective, or the astral realm, a shaman that has squid medicine can counter that twisted kind of creation. So it felt like it was kind of luring me out. And then when I was out in the open, it went for me. And it was really quite, it was different to the shark dreams or whatever, where I really understood. It was like a battle scene. And
Mm.
it was definitely really overwhelming. And there was like, it was like a huge surge of emotional state. And it was kind of showing me what I was about to face kind of as an emotional space. So I don't like to like, because I feel like interpreting dreams is an impressional thing. It's not necessarily a set, focused one thing. It can evolve. So at the time when I woke up, my heart was beating, really fast, and I was really overwhelmed because it moved from that dream into another dream where, for some reason, I was in California. I've never been to California, but I was in this like large building with glass, this massive glass kind of window, and it was dawn. It was like sort of coming down, you know, onto this glass, and then started the suction caps were like starting to pull the glass apart. And I was just like with one other person standing there in this like sort of big auditorium kind of space. And I was like, I don't fully understand why I was in California or what what that related to in terms of the collective. Maybe there was something going on at the time that I can't remember now. But it was really like it was an impending feeling when it came in. And I was like, how are we going to navigate this energy? How are we going to overcome this? And it was sort of just a real, it was like a pressure coming down. It's the way I can explain it as a sensory experience. So when I woke up, I was like, obviously, heart rate up and just breathing through. And it took me a few days for it to settle down. So then I think, as the language comes in more, appropriately for your being, you sort of start to determine like what these things kind of feel like, what you're feeling into. But I don't really necessarily think it means one thing. Like some people are like, oh, this is what this means. And I'm just like, oh, well, I think like if I see a bird, I can interpret that many ways in a day. And by the end of the day, I might have a completely different perspective than what I did this morning. So I feel like it's quite impressional. But what I went through when I look back, yeah, it was kind of remnant of that experience in the dream after. And it did nearly, I lost 20 kilos, lost my hair. I had really long, beautiful hair, and lost my ability to walk. And it took 6 months to be able to walk again and stuff. So it was really quite massive what unfolded as a result of all of that.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, just there's so much there's so much there, and then you ended it on a very personal and intense note there.
Yeah.
But I think a takeaway from our audience is that I think is really key that you've said, because one thing we do say about dreams is that they are very personal, and what one symbol means for somebody can mean something totally different from somebody else. But then you've now highlighted that a symbol for you can actually change depending on where you are in your journey, your growth, and everything like that. And so I think that's something really important to have pointed out. So thank you.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I think it's like our dreams are our personal experience of something, but it's also our personal experience is our interpretation, and that's our like where we can interpret things however we need to in that moment for our own personal. But there are also, it's a collective realm, and we're sharing that dreaming, and that dreaming comes, through as many different experiences depending on what our lineage is, what kind of guides our like ancestors worked with, what kind of energies, what kind of contracts we had. Like if there's not such great contracts, if we've been in some sort of ritual practice that has actually brought that into the bloodline, then we can, as a custodian of the line in the here and now, can have to start to deal with things that haven't been mastered and are shadow, I guess, in that collective awareness within your own lineage. And then there's also the larger collective, like I guess, soup of like just overall things that are happening, you know, every day and the transitional states that we're in. So yeah, definitely, I think like those impressions can uh, you can grow into them. You can grow into the awareness around them because you might start to realize, oh, wait a second, like, 10 generations back, my family were sailors or they worked, on the water, so like, and you're like, okay, so there's a connection to ocean very specifically in my lineage, and there's something that might have happened. You don't always know, but those dream states can sort of give highlights to things. And sometimes it takes years to put together, like to fully comprehend or interpret aspects of your experience in the here and now as a human being from that, dream state.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
definitely agree with that. I've looked back in my journal that, things that I put in there like years ago, and it's like only now that it's resonating with me, or it's the day that I read it is like relevant to that day. So it's not a coincidence. Like you can't make it up. So that's why I
Absolutely,
encourage
yes.
people, yeah, journal, write your thoughts down. It doesn't matter how you do it, but you know, this is just your way of different ways of processing.
Yeah.
Um, like I haven't been really recalling my dreams for the last 2 weeks, snippets here and there, and I think I'm just drawn to really be grounded in the here and now and in this, physical
Mhm.
realm to deal with that sort of stuff. But I had a dream that I woke up this morning. It was so vivid, and it was up kind of, I don't know the suburb, but it's up between or like just below Brisbane. So I don't know the reason for that. I've never, I've been to Brisbane, but not really to hang out. So it was, and I was lost. I didn't know where I was. So that
We're
was
probably
quite
tapping in
interesting. Maybe,
somehow.
I was going to say you were going to
yeah.
meet Natasha.
Is there a massive like multicolored building up there on the coast somewhere? Because that was in my dream.
I wouldn't be surprised if
Very
it's at the Gold
square.
Coast or something, but let's have a look after and we'll try and find this
We'll
this
Google it for
space.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I
But it was, yeah, I
definitely,
think it was for me, it was just like me being lost. I think that's me, it's very personal at the moment, you know.
yeah,
Um just trying to figure things out and yeah, work out where's my next step. So
I understand.
yeah, do you
It's
want
also
to
like,
talk about something? Yeah, you go.
oh no, I was just gonna say like we're in a Mayan calendar which is about to end on the 25th, I think, and then it starts a new calendar on the 26th of July. So we're actually right at the end of a Mayan year, in that sense, and that's like that Mayan system is based on dreaming. So, and we're in a very tra when you're at the last few days of it, you're in a very transitory space. So it's natural to feel quite lost in that energy because you kind of feel like you're everywhere at once and then nowhere at all. Like, and so that's not, and the last 2 weeks, what you're saying is like what that actually fits perfectly with, you're just naturally tapping into that calendar where that cycle's
Yeah,
happening.
okay.
And then the whole new cycle starts on the 26th, I think. So I think probably things will be a bit more direct from then onwards and it will be easier to recognize that. But yeah, I just totally know what you mean. Like things come in and then they come in so hard and fast when you're at the end of like the end of a year. And it's almost like the closing of a dream and you're still trying to put together all the pieces of the last year together in your mind and like, where am I at? What have I been doing? And where am I headed?
Yeah. No, that's good. Do you journal, like dream journal, or just journal in
Yeah.
general? And
I'm
what
like,
have you found
yeah.
helped?
Yeah, I've been a big writer for my whole life because I came from the Solomon Islands and like coming to Australia at 6 years old, I just didn't understand a lot of the culture. I came from like a very free-spirited, very tribal, very like nature-based reality where I didn't have any concept of time, money, or any of those things. And then no one really explained to me when we moved to Australia what that was. And because my parents were both originally Australian, they just assumed that I knew what they knew on some level. So they never really thought, hey, like this child has never experienced like seeing money or like looking at a calendar. So I felt immediately like I went from like a dreaming, because I think our waking life is a dream. And I went from a dreaming that was like so free-spirited. I understood my place and my position. I was fully loved and unconditionally held by spirit. And I knew my connection to source very, very directly because the culture, I was taken care of by a beautiful tribal woman called Melody. And she just always had this beautiful big smile and just her heart was so open. So I felt so protected. And then when I came to Australia, I was like immediately like nobody. could see what I was seeing in the, the dreaming of this here and now. Like a lot of things were compartmentalized in people's awareness, because fantasy, ideas of dreamings were seen as a fantasy novel or a fantasy story. It wasn't seen as reality. And whereas I was like, okay, well, how do I navigate this really complex realm where nobody acknowledges their own feeling state, yet they're like, I'm fine, but they're not fine, and I'm feeling that they're not fine, like empathically. I'm like, oh my gosh. So writing was a huge like a tool for me because I had difficulties with language for quite a long time because I didn't really understand what I was like. Even though I was around English in Solomon Islands, I was mostly around like a tribal environment where I didn't necessarily realize that English was impending upon my survival. It wasn't there because it didn't really matter. I could be myself without needing to say words and still be fully held and understood. Whereas when I came here, I realized people are very, very like only focused on the words that you say. And like, even if it's not true, that's what their understanding of reality is. So I was very drawn to learning how to communicate. And it took me a long time to internally to feel comfortable to externally express myself because it didn't feel like a safe space to being prompted to do orals at school suddenly like talking, and I had no skills in being able to do that, so it would cause me a lot of distress. So writing, once I was able to learn writing and understood how to even write, that was the first thing that I went to because it was the one safe place that I could bring through what I was seeing in the waking dream as well as the dreaming. And I would then start like sort of culminating all of my unconscious to conscious because tribal cultures tend to have more of a right-brained awareness. They don't need all the data to prove why something exists. They have storytelling, and storytelling, you can learn a lot just from one simple story versus hearing the facts and, like the data around something. And that's very much an obsession with the Western mindset, is they need to back it up, which I get. It is part of the left brain, and I don't want to diminish that. But I think storytelling is, for example, Solomon Islands, there's crocodiles, like in the tribes, there would be stories about like people or situations relating to going close to the water, and there would be folklore that they share, which as a child you already know that there are crocodiles or beings, and some of them have names and they have like personalities, and so respectfully like how to navigate those realms. Whereas like they don't need to know how many people died of a crocodile to know that not to go near a crocodile because they've got the storytelling. So I guess for me, like storytelling was also a major part of me feeling safe and supported, and like my learning ability was very right-brained. So yeah, so writing has been like a big practice, and I used to journal like my a lot of different things, whereas the last 3 months I've specifically only been like journaling my dreams and then just writing out themes from the day that relate to that dream. And I've centered it all on the right side of the brain and all on like dreaming, which I did, a lot of my book diaries and stuff, I've got heaps of them, have all dreams, but I also would talk about how I felt about things in the day or whatever. I've sort of made a decision a few months ago. It's like, no, I'm just going to write the dreams, and then like when I have repeating themes, really focus on the feelings relating to those repeating themes, because they're obviously things from my unconscious to conscious that need to be addressed, and that on some level I'm not necessarily able to process. So the only way that I can do that is through writing.
Oh my goodness, you have so many amazing things to say. The I really like that you've taken the perspective to really just focus on your recording your dreams, I guess, and writing down your dreams so then you can go back and reflect on it. I think that's absolutely awesome. And when you say recurring themes, so have you had any recurring themes that have come up, um and then have they been like related to something on a deeper level that you're going through, or is it just related to like more everyday life thing? What has been kind of the trend?
I guess recurring themes are sometimes I find myself at like a place that I know, like for example, it might be a family related situation where it's not always got my family in it, but it's a place where I've grew up, and like if I have a few dreams in a row that kind of take me there, then I know that there's something coming up around my ancestors or slash my family, or things relating to family, my own, particular kind of idiosyncrasies and like undercurrents and things that I need to work through in the lineage so that it's like that it'll take me there and I'll be like, okay, that's been 2 days in a row. Clearly, like there's a theme here, there's a pattern. My unconscious is taking me to this particular place because it represents maybe 20 years of my life as as a young adult or whatever. So I kind of look and I also notice that the things that come up, like for example, if a particular item or object like a couch or uh, something comes up and it was during a certain period of time in my life, in my waking life, that it suddenly pops up. I go, okay, so it's kind of we had that couch from about when I was 10 till I was 15. So I kind of know that it's kind of giving me a bit of a time frame by just it's sort of just giving me a reference or a symbolic time frame. So there's just lots of ways. Or if I have really long hair and now my hair's short, I'll kind of be like, okay, there's something going on with that time, a time that I've had really long hair. Like I kind of just, I don't try to overanalyze it necessarily, but I just try to tap into what the themes are. And then I listen through the day in my waking dream and just really tune into what people are saying. And then I go, okay, well, that might be relating to this or that. And I'll just sort of feel it out. I don't necessarily make any conclusions, but I continue just to keep processing it and then seeing what else comes up as a result. Because usually like attracts like and certain thoughts sort of draw themselves in and it's like a little sun and then the other little suns sort of draw in when you're dreaming. So I kind of think of it like that. And it's also like when you leave yourself open and you don't make any final decisions on it, it means your dreaming state can have an open conversation with you. And so therefore you're not blocking the conversation in any way because the conversation can be ongoing for years. It can be about a particular theme and your unconscious is like might want to have that dialogue with your conscious mind. But when we block it off, we suppress it and it either pops up in other weird ways or there's no room for you to be able to grow within that particular circumstance.
Oh, awesome. Billiana, you're muted.
I know. There's lots of traffic going past, so I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
My thought has just gone.
Oh,
Cool.
no.
Well, I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about like there was one reoccurring theme I had as a child when I moved to Australia, and it was really impending and like it was an awful dream, but it happened repetitively. And because I'd moved from a different culture to this culture, it suddenly became really, really intense. And so the dream was like, a person in my family walking in the middle of the night on cobblestone and a big huge clock similar to like the London clock like fell and killed him and it was repetitive and this never happened like he didn't actually die from any of that but it kind of highlighted as a child the pressure I suddenly felt around time when I didn't understand it and this figure was like a father figure so it's sort of like I was trying to process this thing because all the adults were so stressed about this thing called time and I had no concept of it. I only understood like nature based on cycles and things because I'd lived on an island. So it took me a long time to understand what that really was. And I remember how like stressful it was as an experience to have that because I was taking on the pressures and the expectations and the frameworks, but not able to process any of it because I was a child and I didn't have the capacity to recognize how to work through that. But the dream just kept coming and coming and coming. And it was the same dream over and over again. And so it was really traumatizing as an experience because it was like, but it was highlighting, when I look back, it was really highlighting that as a child, I didn't have any reference to make sense of this thing that everybody was talking about all the time. And the other thing is like my parents owned supermarkets. So I never knew like that you paid for food because we went into supermarket and my parents owned that supermarket, so we just walked away with food. So I thought everybody did that up until maybe I was about 10 or 11, and then I started to realize that other people paid for food, and I think that's still like something that I struggle with mentally because I'm like, oh yeah, it's just available, it's plentiful, it's just in the shop, and it can just be brought, or we can just go grab it. And then other people have grown up with these really strong like understandings of saving money. And so those things have taken me a long process of recognizing how to make sense of this thing called like limitations, like these physical limitations, because I didn't really have them, growing up. So I think part of my journey with going through like illness or like the flare-ups and things was there was a confusion in me that happened from moving from one culture to another, which were like vastly different. And I was never really feeling like I ever knew where to process or how to process that grief around all of that. So it was kind of such a journey to navigate and still, still is still a process for me because my brain works very differently to a lot of people. I've learned to adapt and become more left-brained. I've had to teach myself a lot of skills and work really like a lot harder maybe than some people even have to, because if you're learning things later, you have to do them a lot more when you're a kid and you're still learning certain things. You just automatically assume that's all pervasive. It's part of reality. When you come from another culture and you come in, you realize all the skill sets you've had that have been gearing you to live in this culture go out the window. Like they're great. They still were things that I very much leaned into, but they weren't things that I could comfortably like share with other people.
Yeah, no. Whew. Where do I start? um, it just as you're talking about this, it's basically a giant culture shock that you went through and moving from the islands to the Western society, and then how you're talking about it kind of resonates with me in the fact that you're almost the opposite of what most adults who are waking up are going through, where we've grown up in a left brain dominated society, and now we're trying to figure out how to, you know, um, allow those two parts of the brain to work more cohesively and not have one dominate the other, and then really be able to tap into your intuitive side and everything. So it's really interesting to just listen to you talk and hear the perspective, because it's fascinating. Um,
I felt like I was I had to like to break into the system to be a part of it. I had to learn all of the things that were apparently like socially normal here. And so I was doing it very consciously. And I remember people being like, oh, but you could have just had those skills. And I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to articulate anything if I didn't try to adapt. So I'm super grateful for what I've learned. I understand that I had to move to Australia and there was a lot of amazing blessings, but it was very stressful for me as a child to, because I had a cultural confusion from that. I really didn't know how to I was sort of an outsider, but I didn't look like I was from the islands. My parents are from Australia, so I was invisible in some ways. The parts of me that were very much from that culture were invisible, but I was also very visible because if people were doing something, I wouldn't know how to act in certain situations. So that it was sort of like you'd be really invisible and visible at the same time, and it was like a weird little parallel to walk, growing up.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. I can resonate with that, even though I was brought up in society where you're told don't do this and act like that.
Yeah.
From a young age, from what I can remember, I was always like, no, I was- I'm not doing that. Like in a nice way, but just constant conflict with myself and people around me, because I'm like, well, you're telling me to be less than who I am or someone else. And for a long time, my dreams were very stressful. So, you
Yeah.
know, and that's why, like, if there's a big shift going through my life, doesn't matter when, and I'm hearing this from other people, that's when you might have a dream, a nightmare or a night terror or something stressful. There's like something that's going to be shifting, or there's something that is there's resistance in your life that you need to like take note of. So it probably you're not being authentic to yourself. You're following, the norms of society or whatever it is. Yeah, so that's what I try and when I'm talking to people just in general conversations, like, oh, what are your dreamers like? Like, how did you feel when you woke up as well? Is a
Yeah.
good indicator. Because dreams can be like so like out there, and Sarah has ones about flying, and I've had ones like I used to be a rock climbing instructor, so rope snapping and people flying over the other side of the rock, and I never saw anyone die, but it's just that feeling you get after you wake up is a good indicator of I suppose where you're at mentally, physically, emotionally, all that. So yeah, do you have
Definitely.
anything to add, Sarah? Or is that good?
No, you did a super job there bringing
Yeah.
it all in. And yeah, you mentioned the flying dreams. Like, yeah, I haven't had a flying dream in a while. I last night I definitely had a it was more, I think I was actually astral traveling. I don't know exactly where I went, but I just remember the familiar feeling of just being free. And I just like was, it wasn't flying, but I was like just gliding down the stairs. But then there was a cat, and then the cat like kind of lunged at me. And then I felt the sensation like me coming back into my body. And so I was like, I was like, I feel like that cat was showing me that I'm visible when I'm traveling like that. So it was just an interesting
I
experience.
love cat dreams.
Oh yeah,
I love animals anyway. Like,
my cat is often in my dreams. Like she's usually like my I have like an actual cat. She's not here at the moment. She's usually on the floor while we're recording, but lately she's been in my dream a lot, and I think she's just been like kind of there as like just a protector kind of feeling, just making sure I'm not going anywhere I shouldn't be going, which is kind of nice.
animals are amazing for that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
They are
Um,
they are literally the dream emissaries. Like they're there to really guide us through the dreaming because they are part of the astral kind of realm. So yeah, they really help us move through a lot of really complex things. And I was just going to add with Billiana what you just said about the potentially being inauthentic. And I think sometimes too, it's just that feeling isn't really from like an outsider perspective at times when I first came here, feeling isn't really accepted sometimes as a form of information or it's sort of like a body memory. And so sometimes when you're feeling really overwhelmed after dreams, it's not even that you aren't being authentic. You might be being really authentic, but you have to hold back because you're playing certain roles in the world. Because when you go to work, you can't necessarily talk about certain things or act a certain way. And this whole Western mindset is all about compartmentalization to a degree in terms of that. And not saying that you have to be compartmentalized, but it is kind of set up in some ways like that. And so it sometimes is just like the information might be in a body memory, and it might take a few days before it even settles, before you can even intellectually try to even make sense of things. And it sounds like you're very right-brained, Billiana, like you are probably, you
Yeah,
see things very visually and you feel things really deeply, but it takes a while for you to sometimes link up those things from a left brain perspective, which I think is a really beautiful thing. Like I think it's
yeah,
not trying to know things all the time. It's okay to sit in a place where you don't really understand something and let that sort of work through you, and it naturally shows you, okay, like it's okay to be an explorer.
yeah. I know, like even with dreams, we thought about like Rachel, I mean Sarah, still these names going through my head. Like is comes from like a scientific background, and so like getting guests on that can talk about dreams that are more factual, or like so people can comprehend it in that way. But for me, I just like I struggle to comprehend that kind of information, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's for me. I suppose I've tried really hard to take in facts and language and that sort of thing. And like you, I struggled for a long time even trying to speak and articulate how I feel. Sometimes I just forget like how to talk because it's just so unusual for me because that's not how I function. And
yeah,
I suppose, and that's why, like with your dreams, there's a undercurrent of like how your dreams are like is reflectant of like who you are in the waking world. If you really see colors or numbers or you or animals or nature or whatever it is, like it's definitely relates to who you are as a person, and we should be tapping into that, I think. um
definitely.
that's why, like for me, I really feel my dreams. I don't necessarily remember colors or like people talking or anything specific like that. It's like the undercurrent is the
Feeling.
feeling for me. Feeling. Yeah. So um yeah, I think that's the important thing, is to really understand like what you um what you can take from the world and what you can take from your dreams. So yeah.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
head's just kind of like everywhere at the moment. I'm
Don't say no, that was perfectly stated. I fully understood what you were saying and I felt what you were saying. I feel what you're
yeah,
saying, Biliana. And anytime we've had a conversation, I've really felt you. Like there's so much more going on than the words are kind of like the ripples on the surface that we're just sort of catering to because that's how, communication is. But there's like I can feel you like there's a lot more depth in your loving and open heart and the way that you share things that my body resonates with as a memory before language almost. So
yeah, yeah. That's what I think. That's what I don't know. Do you like when you guys, both of you, do you when you dream? Do you have lots of talking in your dreams? Because I don't feel like I do.
I don't a lot know.
No, because that's like a good indicator. Is like we don't need it to connect with the world.
You
No, I have a
know,
lot of impressions, but that's it. Like
Yeah,
I'm just like feel sensory impressions more than
yeah.
anything.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what, Billiana, of all the conversations we've had about dreams and all the episodes we've done, that has not been a question that we've asked or addressed. And I'm just like here thinking about it, I'm like, do I have conversations in my dreams? I'm like, usually not. No, not that I can recall. It's definitely like all about the experience, like you said, the sense, the like sensory, how you're feeling, and I definitely notice
Yeah.
colors. I know notice vividness. I feel like physically feel things in my body for sure. But I'm gonna really pay attention now and see if I'm having any conversations in my
Yeah.
dream. Yeah.
It's almost like it's just like a knowing, like that you know that you've had a particular conversation, or you know that what that person's about, or what that animal's about, or there's no like actual speech. So yeah, that just kind of just come to me then, and I just realizing like maybe that's why I don't like talking that much. Only
It,
when necessary, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you're already talking, you're already communicating. You're kind of like, why? Like, I'm feeling this way. I'm being this way. Like, do I have to justify it through words? Like, I've learned to do that because I've realized that my purpose was to be a writer and a communicator and, I write poetry, I do those things. But to me, it's transmuting language into something that gives beautiful images and feeling and sensations. And even when I do singing and sound, it's like there's certain like sensor, I call them soundscapes because they're like dreaming, like feelings, but they're translated through sound. But the actual intellectual side of communication, I've learnt to be better at, and like I've worked really hard at because I wanted to be able to relate my feeling state into a world and actually, support other people to feel more. But sometimes you have to meet people where they're at and then bring them back and vice versa. I've had, through other people who are very more left brain and intellectual, I've learned a lot about how to communicate things and what's appropriate and what's not. I won't always get that right because I'm just very feeling oriented in the sense of like social conditioning sense, but that's okay. Let's just like we're all here to teach each other different things and learn different things. But yeah, I'm the same. I don't really have any conversations going on in my dreams. Everything's just like feeling. It's usually water is a main theme in my dream. Uh, oh my God, all the birds are turning up in front of the window. It's so funny. Um, they're all sitting and looking in, and they're at the windowsill, so they're coming in to say hello because we've got lots of birds around here that come into my house, and like one of them flies and hangs out with me in the bedroom, and like while I'm doing writing or doing things, so they're very, very present here. But
Aw.
yeah, so basically just like that's the same as me. I don't it's a feeling. It's like it's an influx of information, but it's not done in like an intellectual sense. But then later on when you write it, I think writing is really great because it bypasses it's sort of like it sort of cohesively brings the left and the right side of the brain together when you're writing it. And so there are things that happen in the dream that you wouldn't, if you didn't write it down, sometimes you wouldn't be able to put it together. And so writing it down does help you kind of cohesively sort of tie or connect the dots of things. But I try not to create a final decision about it. I just kind of go, oh, okay. And then what I do as a practice as well is I'll try and think on the dream that I had that night throughout the day and for the next few days. And lately, I've been really practicing an exercise which has kind of pushed me a little bit in the limits, which has been fun. Is that I've been waiting like 5 days or something like that, and I'll write all the dreams. I have to remember each dream for each night and then write them all down. And so it's sort of like I'm holding the dreams for a few days. I have to keep thinking about them. And if I forget one, I've got to, and I always try to find a key, like bookmark in each dream. So I'll just start it in my head. It'll be like, oh, I ate bread, or I did this, or, and then if I can keep holding that dream and then write them all out, I feel like I'm being conscious in the conversation or the connection or the feeling state with those dreams, without like just switching off from them. So it's sort of like learning to hold dreams for a longer period of time. But it's not easy it takes time. And sometimes I know I have to write them that day, but sometimes I wait like 7 days and I'll write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'll work backwards. And I'll be like, okay, can I remember all my dreams, and am I engaging with my dreams? So if there's a dream that I don't remember in that, I kind of sometimes like it comes back, but I just realize, oh, maybe I haven't been engaging with that part of my awareness enough to hold that as an awareness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, that's awesome.
that
I
is
like
a
that.
fascinating exercise. That to me is like next level dreamer, I don't know, relationship, whatever you want to call it. Because that's, I mean, it's one of the things that we tell people who are, we have a lot of people that we speak to, just people that are listen to the show or whatnot. And they're like, oh, how do you remember your dreams? Like they're not even at that point to being able to necessarily recall dreams. And so for us, we're just like, get all the information down, whatever you can, even if it's one word in like the first 5 minutes, because you lose it after that. But you're at this point where you're able to just keep like you said, keep the conversation going. And I think that's super impressive. And it just really shows how in tune you are with your conscious and unconscious, as you've kind of termed it. And that's definitely aspiration level right there. I
Oh,
got
thank
Yeah,
something
you.
to
it's really good.
yeah, definitely want to. And it's also like from a memory perspective, it's definitely got to be um I feel like I'm just thinking about our last episode with Dr. Val, who's a neuroscientist, and she talks about epigenetics and neuroplasticity. So that must definitely be creating a whole bunch of new brain connections and being able to keep that level of experiences, I guess, all tapped in, and then to be able to write them all down at the
I
after.
feel like memory is like a feeling state too. Like, we kind of think of it as an intellectual mind thing and we kind of keep it to the brain. But if you actually just really feel, even if you don't remember the dream circumstances, if you try to tap into the feeling like what Billiana was talking about, that sometimes the themes come back from that rather than trying to remember specific details. But there's some things that I do, like when I wake up, if there's something very prominent, like a piano, I'll just go piano. And then like in my brain, and just think about what it is to be in front of a piano. And I feel what it feels like music, what is that feeling of what music feels like? And then that might just be the key word. And if I have to get on with the day, I've got that as a little reference. It's just one key word in my mind. And then when I have a bit of spot time to daydream, I'll sit there and I'll go into that dream and I'll go, what happened before that? And how did I feel? And okay. And then I'll just sort of feel into it. And it's just bringing awareness. It's just having awareness in the dream as well is another thing. It's like if you have awareness in your waking dream and you have awareness as you're going to sleep, like I really am looking forward to the adventures that I'm having in my dream tonight. I'm really excited about where I'm going to be, or those sort of thoughts create a pathway of awareness to help you be aware in your, sleep slash dreaming. And then from that, when you wake up, it's sort of like, okay, I need to carry my awareness from that state, which is, and there's a kind of perspective that I have that I think that when I wake up in my, perception of self, my dreamer self goes to sleep and I'm then taking over. And then when I go to sleep, my dreamer self wakes up. And so we're both dreaming together. We're both just like, it's sort of like we kind of like meet each other at the relay and we like hit hands and we're like, okay, it's your turn now. So I just try to like connect with these different imaginary, like I guess using my imagination to create these stories that help my mind connect with and my heart connect with these states of consciousness, with the awareness in this, and try to do it smoothly. And there are, I'm not always smooth. There's sometimes a lot busier times and there's a lot coming up, but it's just going, okay, well, even if I'm really busy, do I have a spare, 5 minutes to daydream, which I think is really important, like just to feel into what that feeling
Yeah.
is. And then just collect yourself. You don't have to always be in your awareness all the time. Sometimes things do happen and it's not always easy to stay in that state. But it's just going, okay, well, I have, even if I can't recall all of it, or I'm not, what is most important to me in the here and now, and how does that make me feel? And just collecting yourself as a feeling state, I think is really important.
With your artwork, do you put your dreams into there? Because I was just thinking, like, I've been listening to a few things, and like as we're talking about writing, and I tried to like write my journal entries, like the original first, ones were just pretty much like a couple of words and maybe a symbol and stuff. And then I advanced to like trying to articulate it a little bit better. And I'm like, this is exhausting. What's a better way of doing it that I can still express what I've dreamt about? And I'm like, maybe just pictures, like drawing
Pictures, yeah,
like
definitely.
symbols or stuff like that. So do your dreams come out into your artwork?
I would say they're dream portals, for sure. And I've always seen my artwork because they're quite abstract. So, and they're very color oriented and they're feeling oriented more than anything, which is what makes people feel a bit uncomfortable. They'll be like, what is it meant to be about? And I'm like, what do you see? Like, it's like looking at the clouds. Like, what do you see? And when you open that up, you start having everybody jump in and they're like, I see a giraffe with like a hat on and he's going to a party. And I'm like, this is great. Like, that's the kind of mindset you need to have when it comes to dreaming, is just not trying to bring the logic, the perceived logic from this dreaming, this world that we live in, has certain laws, and it has a certain sort of structure. And when we try to bring that structure into the dreaming, that seems really illogical to us when we wake up and we're like, oh, that's really weird. That's a weird dream. It's not really. It's just that each place you go to has different laws or structures. And when you understand what those foundations are, you understand like you can fly. It's not, because that's just part of the structure of that particular dreaming that you're having. It's very easy. I was flying last night. I was just like, there was some people down on the ground and I was kind of wanting to get away from people. So I went up, and it was because I knew in that reality, it's very normal for me to do that. And I think that bringing that connection to like artwork, for example, when I'm doing art, I remove the laws of like, oh, this is meant to look like this. Like, I just feel. And then if someone literally interrupted me and said, what color are you going to use for your next color? I would just want them off my back. I'd just say red just to get them off my back. I wouldn't be grabbing red necessarily. I just grab whatever was closest to me because it's very tactile and it's like very instinctive. And I don't want to feel limits based on like the logic of my mind. But I also understand that that comes into it at the end. Like I call it, there's like the editor that exists as a persona part of my consciousness that I bring in at the end of a painting and say, is this finished? He's not allowed in like while I'm painting. He's only allowed in at certain points because he's really good at what he does when he comes in. But if you try to bring him in when you're trying to do creative, he'll stop you from doing creativity, like full stop. He'll start being critical on everything. So the critical aspect is like important, but it's really important to have a perfect time and space and a perfect little role for them to go into. But if you try to bring them into everything you do, you won't do anything creative. You'll just be like jarred up.
No, that's very
Yeah.
interesting that you personified that as a he. And all I could think about, I was like, she has a perfect balance of her masculine and feminine energy. That's like
Oh,
fantastic. So
thank you, Sarah. That's
you're
so nice
welcome.
of you.
Yeah. I just wanted to have a couple more I forget what we classify these questions as, Billion, but are more like um eh,
Gauge
non-philosophical.
where people are at, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it kind of came up when you mentioned about your dream. One of your dreams earlier, you talked about like, oh, maybe your dream you have long hair, and then another one you might have short hair, and it kind of helps gauge what timeline you're looking at. It's something that you're having to analyze with that dream. But the simple question I have for that is, what is the perspective that you dream in? Because for me, a lot of times my dreams are just like as I am right now, it's just through my eyes experiencing it. I know Billiana often has a lot of third person or sort of like observing type dreams. So I was prompted when you mentioned about the length of your hair. I'm like, I was like, I'm not even sure I would really know what length my hair was in the dream because that's not like I'm not like seeing myself from like a third person view or something.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I don't dream as myself most of the time. But when I have specific types of experiences, I often find myself standing in front of a mirror or in front of glass, and it will change and it will show me different things. So sometimes I'll see like if I am dreaming and I'm perceiving myself, it'll be usually in front of a mirror and it will be like specific. It's like I'll find myself in front of a mirror, in front of myself, in front of a reflection, and I'll see myself. But sometimes I look completely different. But I often find that that's usually when I'm trying to figure out what roles I'm playing. So, for example, if I'm finding myself standing in front of a mirror and I'm wearing all black and I'm not really happy about the outfit, or I'm not, or maybe I really love it, it's sort of more about whether I feel comfortable in a particular role in my psyche, and that's just popping up as a particular part of the dream. And then when I continue on, I might not even really be perceiving myself from, me being Natasha. Sometimes I'm completely different people. Other times I'm just observing. Most of the time it's like I'm observing things. So that it probably depends on what's going on in my life and what is like what I'm trying to process, and also where I'm actually trying to make sense of something that's happening in my waking dream.
No, fascinating. Because I'm pretty certain for most of my dream experience, it's 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 like me that's experiencing it. So it's interesting to hear that,
Wow.
you're playing different kind of roles. But I will say when you spoke about the mirror, that really stood out for me because there was one dream that I had recently where I was looking in a mirror and I was surprised not to see how I look now. I had different color skin and really, really big eyes, but not like comical or anything. Like it was just, some humans have like bigger, nice, open eyes, I guess. And just like was smiling at myself in the mirror. And it took me aback because it didn't resonate that it was me, but
It's
up
you.
until I saw myself in the mirror consciously, I'm like, well, this is just me. I'm going through all these experiences. So yeah.
Well, in psychosomatic therapy, they identify the eyes as the windows to the soul, and then the eyebrows as being the bridge between and the heart. The eyes are the heart, and then the forehead is kind of because like he was really fascinated with how big my forehead was, and he like got me to be in front of this class. He's like, "This is amazing!" Like, and then he was like, her eyebrows are like the bridge to her heart, and her heart's like not, it's her eyes are like more inset. And because he was reading the body as like almost like a dreaming manifestation in the here and now. And it was like really, really funny to me because he was just so fascinated by that. He was even like commenting, making me go sideways and like, look at the shape of like her forehead. And like, she's so creative, she has these like a lot of different feelings and a lot of thoughts about these things. But the eyes being bigger is like maybe it's your heart opening up. And maybe you're going through something that opened up your heart more, or there's something that's like, yeah, like I'm really ready to see more of who I am in that heart space or something, like not to interpret your dream, but just more as something that I would probably think of it if my eyes were bigger. I'd be like, wow, like something's opening up. I'm connecting in with my heart in this particular time of my life for some reason.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the on the spot interpretation or just the extra perspective to think at it from. And clearly you were meant to tell me that in that moment. So thank you. um, and then are your dreams like you typically very vivid or is there some I don't know. We have an episode that we did, which was talking about whether you dream in color or not, just in general, because apparently there's a chunk of the population that actually dream in grayscale.
Wow, okay. Yeah, color, sensory, water is a big theme. It's always like the looking into water, feeling what water feels like, falling into water, swimming in water, whether it's clear or whether it's sort of like darker or harder to see, So that's kind of, I think, the unconscious to conscious kind of connection. For me, it's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this feeling space out. But colors are, yeah, definitely crystals come in a lot for my dreams. Oh, that's where the colors probably come in most prominently, like where I'd actually notice because I love, I like crystals and I've been a liquid crystal practitioner for I think about 13 years. So my mind, it's sort of like I feel like there's a language happening from a crystal or energy. So for example, the other day I had a dream of a pink calcite and it looked like a calcite and then it transformed into a sort of a really soft pink, like a Lemurian quartz. And then it started to grow all of the quartz kind of points and stuff. So yeah, it was really vivid, like fuchsia, pink, calcite, and then it sort of transformed into a really soft pink kind of quartz. So yeah, the colors are a big part of the feeling state for me. And I'm often like, oh wow, this object's completely transforming in front of my eyes. So yeah, but it depends on what I'm focusing on because I don't tend to like unless it's something that I want to explore in the dream and that yeah, they are really vivid, but it's usually there's a feeling that's pulling me in through, which I think is what dreaming kind of is. Anyway, you kind of feel like you're being pulled like magnetized into different areas. So yeah, definitely very vivid, but it will depend. Like if it's an animal, then that'll become the theme. And so it doesn't matter how many colors are around me, I'll be focused more on the animal.
Oh, interesting. Uh, oh, I had
What
a
about you guys?
yeah, I'm full on color. Like I said, my experience, my dream is while I'm dreaming, it's like my physical reality pretty much. But sometimes colors will stand out. So like when you were talking about the crystals, so Liliana mentioned I have a science background, so I actually have a PhD in organic chemistry. So I got to make a lot of colorful molecules and there's a recurring, I'll say it's kind of recurring. I haven't quite figured out what it is or why, but I'm often in the lab in my dreams. And the most recent one was actually this past week, and I was growing crystals in the lab, and,
Oh, wow.
and but they were yellow, so it's interesting. I don't know what the molecule was or why I was growing them, but I was just reminded when you were talking about crystals. So I definitely have an affinity for crystals as well.
So your lab is kind of like your little alchemy, creation station in the dream space. It's like that's kind of where you're up to things or you're in little processes. Like,
Yeah, like I said, I still haven't quite figured it out. I know that there's a part of me that, I did chemistry for like 12 plus years and was not at all awake and spiritual at all during all of that time. Very heavy into the academia. And then I left academia and then started to wake up and have pretty much jumped full full into spirituality. I left science in the dust and but there's like this part of me that wants to be able to merge the two together because I do feel that the the physical side of things and then the metaphysical, like it's all part of this whatever reality
oh,
universe that we're in, but they've been separated. And so
compartmentalized. Yeah.
yeah, and so there's definitely a way that they come together, but then there's also the whole thing where our educational systems and academia have all been infiltrated, they've all been controlled, they've been controlled in a way that they only tell you certain things or they only teach certain things. And then when you're waking up and you're literally questioning the fabric of reality and everything that there is, it it's hard for me to discern what is actually real in chemistry and what's not because I know that there's a whole realm in the spiritual side of things that the things that I've seen and have experienced with energy that you like an academic would just not be able to fully comprehend,
Yeah.
because they come from that very data driven side of things. And I feel like I just went on to like two or three different little tangents, but yeah, anyway, don't know if you've got something that came through with that.
No, I just wanted to say I remember this really like a healer, crystal healer and dowser, and he follows like dragon lines and sort of things and takes people on tours in the UK. And he showed me the T.S. Eliot pyramid, and it's like it shows that, at the base it's data of the pyramid, and then it moves up, and it's like knowledge and then wisdom. And he talked to me because he was from the UK and he moved to Australia elder, but we both related to how weird it is to come to Australia. And he talked to me about cultural confusion because he could recognize that in our work together when we were working together. And so I learned a lot from him in terms of him, because him coming from, I guess, the UK and having, a very much like intellectual ability, but also being really driven by really helping people come into their feeling state. That was what he was. So it's similar to what you're talking about with you being from a science background. It's like you were there for a reason. Then obviously you've got to use those tools because that's part of your soul's mission to sort of find a way to bridge these worlds and like unify and like weave everything together. But from his perspective, like the T.S. Eliot, he said tribal cultures were very much in the wisdom. They don't need to know all the data to know why they do things. Yes, things can cycle in through lineages, but that happens anyway. That's just part of what it is to be a part of a physical material realm, which is governed by cycles. But I really related because that if you tell me a story, I'm immersed. Like, I'm really thinking about feeling into the space, and I really love storytelling. I think it's really sad if storytelling is like stripped away from learning. I think that it's really sad for children and for adults. I can, kind of tell sometimes people are like, I don't watch any of these stories, da 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 da. I just follow the facts. And I think, oh, it's really sad because like that's really great that you found something that you like, and that's, not at all in any judgmental kind of sense. But it's really sad because there's so much learning and so much self-development, and you put yourself in each character's role, even the dark characters, the light characters, and you learn so much about who you are and what decisions you would make or what decisions you make in the here and now. And it's about that integration, like what you were just talking about. But the T.S. Eliot pyramid, I think, like what he kind of imprinted it upon my brain. So whenever I hear people talking about a lot of facts, my brain can't pick up on like that stuff. It's just like impossible. But what I can do is if you tell me a story, I can feel what is true for me. And so I'm like, well, I think that the inner compass in terms of recognizing stories and currents and things like that is probably what allows that data to have any purpose. If we just have data on its own, we've taken the soul out of things and we've taken like the
Yeah.
feeling out of things, which is pretty like it's kind of a shell with no substance. And yet then when you unify them together, they're incredible allies when they're, whole.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Liliana, you have anything you would like to say when you take yourself off mute?
Keep forgetting.
As I said, we're rusty.
Yeah, I
it's
know.
fine.
And just I'm traveling around, so I'm in a different location, so there's always, different distractions. So um I just love like your perspective of yeah, everything you've shared, and I really appreciate, your insights and everything. And we've had chats like, previous days and weeks, and so it's been really good to get to know you in a different space, and your insights on here, and also for other people to get to, experience your energy and what you have to offer into this world. So thank you for that. I don't have any other questions, but I suppose what we do ask is there anything that you would like to share that's on your heart, that anything about just whatever comes out, can be about dreaming, anything that you'd like to share?
I guess the one thing that I would like to share is that every experience and every part of our connection to the waking life and the dreaming life is a dream space, and that the more that you can utilize creativity as a way to transform the data into something meaningful and bring soul to things like poetry or writing practices or art, or even just as simple as, sitting outside and making some things out of sticks or just whatever. Doesn't have to have a logic reason, just feeling into those spaces and letting. I think that's a really good way to connect with what I call source or the unified field, because I think that idea of productivity sometimes can get in the way of just allowing yourself to be a being of the universe, like a divine being of the universe. And like this dream, that all the dreams that we've had are like sort of refractions of light from the original creator's dream. And from my understanding, like even when you look at, for example, Adam and Eve and the original dream that we kind of talk about in terms of biblical aspects, which I don't come from any religious background, but I just put this together in my own storytelling kind of mindset, is it feels like Adam and Eve was like the dream of creator that created humanity. And that was the first dream of for example, our species, our beings, and there might be other dreams for other species, but for us it was like, and then when they talk about the fall of Adam and Eve, and suddenly they then had to become the creators in the likeness of the creator, creating dreams and being a part of the dreaming. And I just feel like that's quite a beautiful, like what we experience day to day might seem mundane because of the conditions, the social conditions, and because of this what I call expectation of continuity. We expect things to look the same. When we leave a room, we come back, we think everything's the same. So we just assume that because of the material realm and the way we've perceived it, we kind of, it loses, sometimes we lose the ability to connect with the magic of the here and now. So I would say that the best way to dream in your sleeping kind of space, dreaming, is to be really present in the here and now and start to just really let yourself be creative. Because I think that when you do a lot of creative practices in your, day-to-day life, that comes into your dreaming, and then you start to be able to remember those things more easily. And it sort of builds a language into the unconscious. And the unconscious can more easily come through in the day-to-day here, where we expect things to look the same. When we start to open that language or dialogue, we create a bridge between us and the unconscious, the conscious mind and the unconscious. And then in the dreaming state, we're more likely going to remember a lot of those little like feeling states or images or whatever it is. And I think those things really do help aid us in like stepping forward as like conscious and unconscious unified dreamers.
It's just, I can't
Love
thank
that.
you enough for agreeing to be on our show tonight. Or this morning, I guess, for for you lovely ladies. I know that there's going to be some great moments in this episode for a lot of people, and it's going to resonate with them. So thank you for your time. Thank you for just agreeing to be here. And is there anything you would like people to know about you and how to reach you? If there's any services or anything that you offer? Well, of course, we'll have links and stuff in the show notes as well for people to reach out to.
Sure. Yeah, I just have a website, selfhealingalchemy.com, and it just kind of has some videos on YouTube linked to there. But I've also got a YouTube channel under the handle Self Healing Alchemy. And I also just have a Telegram group, which like a channel which you can join, and I just share my thoughts on different things. Some of it relates to dreaming, some of it's, just like different feeling things or just positive and beautiful and loving things to be shared. So yeah, anyone's welcome, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty much. I don't really necessarily offer a lot because I'm writing a few books at the moment, and I'm writing a modality for self-healing alchemy, which is all about creation practices and things. So yeah, that's kind of like my real passion is helping people remember that they're creators, like that none of this like I can't draw kind of thing. Like no, 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 it doesn't matter. You don't need to draw things a certain way. You can just be whatever it comes out is like perfect and it's right for your particular unique being. So I think the individual expression of the creative energy is really important to like support in this world.
Yeah, being a creator is limitless, so we shouldn't be putting limits on ourselves. So yeah, no,
Definitely.
that definitely resonates with me. It's beautiful.
Oh,
Billiana, do
thank
you
you
have
so
any?
much, both of you.
Oh no, it's our pleasure. Billiana, do you have any final words?
No, just thank you, and those been following our channel. So thank you for those people. We really enjoy doing this, and we're only doing it because not only we are doing this because we want to share our passion just for dreaming for life, um, our curiosity, and yeah, asking questions about who we are and trying to remember who we are.
Yeah, we all deserve to have
Yeah,
that.
that's why we do it. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you so much, beautifuls. Like
Yeah,
both of you,
that's right.
Billiana and Sarah, I really appreciate being a guest on your show. And yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's probably some more conversations we could have. So if you ever, yeah, we could definitely continue talking about dreaming if people wanted to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe
For sure.
perhaps we'll have you on another time down the road, and especially if we've had anything profound, amazing that has happened in the dream space, I'm sure we'll love to hear about it. We also have a dream portal on our website where you can also share dreams as well. So feel free, not just you, but our listeners as well. Dream Oracle for You. That is the number 4 and the letter U.com. You can check us out there. The course details are also on the website for the course that's coming up in September. So please be sure to register. There is a pilot discount for the course at the moment. So you'll want to get in on the first on the first round. We are very open for guests to come on the show. Again, you can reach out to us through our website. And if you have anything you would like to share, join us on our Dream Portal or reach out to us at dreamoracleforyou.com. Once again, Natasha, thank you again for being on the show. Thank you to our listeners. This podcast, really, you're what helps propel us forward with this. We know that everyone who listens to our show really enjoy it. And we know we have a lot more beautiful souls that have not found the podcast yet. We're just waiting for you to pick up on it. As always, everyone, please just keep on dreaming.